Well, everyone, I think we've got a quorum. I know we've got some time constraints for a couple of board members this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and call us to order. If we can do a roll call, Ashley, and see if we've got a quorum here and get started.
Michael Brown. Michael Brown.
Here.
Oh, sorry. Randy Gilbert.
Here.
Shaylin Handing.
Here.
Leonard McCullough.
Here.
Rob Seaman.
Here.
Superintendent Walters.
Here. Okay, so we do have a quorum. Ashley, was the agenda posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so moving on to the next agenda item, if you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Oklahoma flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Oklahoma flag salute. I salute the flag of the state of Oklahoma. Its symbols of peace unite all people. And now, if you would, join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. The director and I were speaking about moving some items around on the agenda, and just if you would let us know if there's any kind of issue with that, or their vote needing to be taken. We want to move both of our comments to the end. Is that right, Director?
Yes, 1.03, 1.04. If you guys don't mind, we'd like to move those to the end to make sure we cover action items before a couple of you have to go to confirmation hearings.
So that means we'll skip on down to 1.05. Is there any action needed to do that, or are we good to just state that and move forward?
Maria, we don't need a vote to move those to it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're good. Okay. Thank you, Marie. Okay, then the first agenda item I see with an action there is 1.05, discussion of possible action on the minutes of April 17th, 2005 regular meeting. Do we have a motion or discussion? We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ashley, do you mind calling roll for me?
Mr. Seaman.
Yes.
Mr. McCullough.
Yes.
Ms. Handing.
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Action item passes. Moving to item number 2, discussion possible action concerning employment of Mr. Carson Dean. I will kick that over to you, Director Haken.
All right. Board members, we have a individual employed by CareerTech that is a digital bindery worker, journey worker. I am recommending termination. You have the opportunity, if you would like, to move into executive session. That would be the pleasure of the board, and we also have Raquel Parlay, Manager of HR, if that would be anything you would need.
All the questions or concerns have been addressed through CareerTech department, through HR.
Yes.
I would move to accept the recommendation.
Second.
I hear a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Ashley, you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert.
Yes.
Ms. Handing.
Yes.
Mr. McCullough.
Yes.
Mr. Seaman.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes, motion passes. Now let's move on to 2.02, discussion of possible action of the approval of the Gordon Cooper Technology Center Aviation Campus. Director?
Awesome. So we've got to do this once before since I've been director, is approve a campus. Our rules state that any campus can be considered when it has 5 full-time instructors. And then there's some other stipulations on the rule that we consider about location, area to transport, all those things as well. We have the superintendent of Gordon Cooper here. Julie, would you like to come forward and talk about your campus and what you're doing so the board might be aware before they take a vote? Oh, go ahead and hit your mic, sorry.
Good morning. Thank you for your time this morning. We have an aviation campus in Shawnee across from the hospital. It's on the airport property. We have 3 adult instructors, a general airframe and power plant. We have 1 high school instructor. We are adding another high school instructor in August. We have an enrollment of 46 students already in the high school program, hoping to fill a little bit further to that. The last 2 years, we've turned away some eligible applicants because of meeting capacity with only a single high school instructor, so we feel the need to expand and grow. And that's brought about the 5 instructors for August.
What questions would board members have for Julie?
How many students at a time can an instructor teach?
So they generally teach 16 to 18 in the morning and in the afternoon.
And they're different.
And they are different, yes. And so what would happen with this instructor is the enrollment would be a smaller number for the first year, because in the second year, he would receive another set of students, juniors, the first year, seniors the second year. So we'll even have a more massive enrollment when he has finished his first year of teaching for us.
And how long is the program?
So for the high school students, it's 2 years, and in 2 years, they complete their general, and then they take their general maintenance test as well, before the opportunity to enroll in power plant and airframe as an adult student.
Yep. So if you're not aware of the need in aerospace maintenance right now, some of you may be, but American Airlines has made a large commitment to grow. Tinker has made a large commitment to grow and expand their campus. And then we have many other businesses in the state that are continuing to come to the area. So aerospace is one of the areas we have to continue to grow to serve. We had an estimate a couple months ago that we were going to be, by next year, 400 maintenance technicians short across the state.
Yeah, it's a huge demand. Often when students come out of the general program, they can go immediately to work at SkyWest, AAR, and Tinker, and sometimes the appeal of that wage doesn't retain them into the adult side for power plant and for airframe. And so we want to make sure that we have a robust attendance on the adult side. So this will allow us to push more students through as we lose some immediately after the high school program because they go straight to work.
Straight out of high school?
Straight out of high school, making sometimes $25, $27 an hour.
Ms. McCormick, thanks for being here today, and thanks
Yes.
for what you do at Gordon Cooper.
Yes.
I know with your location close to, I mean, I would say Tinker Air Force Base or
Yes.
some aviation needs.
Yes.
I bet your placement rate's pretty amazing coming out of the current aviation facility.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and these are after high school students going into well-paying jobs, so.
Some of the high school students recently have chosen to go on to college. I don't know if you know that OBU has just added an engineering pathway, and they're doing mechanical, electrical, and aerospace. So some of them now have that opportunity locally that they didn't have before.
I may have got a little lost, but when when a student graduates high school, they can graduate with their A&P,
They can graduate with their general.
with their general?
Their general.
Well, they've already
standards.
tested out of the general?
They have. We require that at the end of the program, and we didn't originally do that up until two years ago. So 2 cohorts have had that requirement.
I see. Is there testing at Gordon Cooper?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That is an option. They don't have to test there, but it is an option to test there. We have a testing facility.
Maybe you'll share a little bit. The current aviation facility is, I would say, 20-plus years old, but it might be closer to 30.
It was, so we originally did aviation on the main campus in what is now our Innovation Center, and we started the first wing of the aviation campus in 1989. So, yeah, it has been around a very long time. Added onto it 3 times. It has 3 hangars, airplanes in each hangar, and we recently, through the federal surplus grant system, purchased a helicopter. Which is pretty cool.
And it's on the northeast side of Shawnee
Yes, yeah.
Airport, I
Yeah.
believe, so it's right on campus. So.
Yeah, we lease the property. We have access to the airways and to flights coming in.
Board members, if you're not aware or don't remember, we approve campuses because that's part of the funding mechanism to technology centers. And as our discussions have been going for the last several months, that funding mechanism has been outdated. Today, I'm going to give you an update later in our board meeting about where we are on revamping that. So it will play a part again in the funding mechanism to tech centers like it's supposed to statutorily. So that's why we take these to approval, because without your approval, they can have sites. We have many sites across the state for different school districts that are non-funded because they don't meet the criteria. But you have before you one that does meet criteria, and that's why we're recommending that be approved.
If there's no more comments or no more questions, I would move that we approve the Gordon Cooper Technology Center Aviation Campus.
Second.
Before a vote, just a quick question. So just from a technical standpoint, in approving this campus, what we are doing is allowing the funding to be available for the aviation program.
Absolutely.
correct?
This would move us to 63 campuses? Yes, 63 approved campuses. So now the mechanism would work for 63 instead of 62. So they would be eligible for that portion of funding.
And they've met every criteria necessary to do this.
They have.
Absolutely.
The one thing, if I can add, that makes this an advantage for us, not the funding in mind, is that we follow FAA calendar. And so it's really beneficial to that campus to not be affected by what happens at the main campus. So we had a water line break one time. We had to cancel class for the afternoon. Aviation had to cancel as well, but it didn't affect them because they are on the other side of town. And so this allows them to function a little bit independently with their calendar, away from the calendar of the main campus.
We have oh, sorry.
Thank you for all you do, Ms. McCormick.
Oh, thank you for all you all do.
So we have a motion and a second on the board. Is there any further discussion before we do a roll call? Okay. Ashley, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Ms. Hanning?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Superintendent Walters?
Yes. Motion passes. Congratulations. Awesome program. Great campus there already. So this is a fantastic addition. So that is fantastic news. Next, we have discussion on possible action of the lottery scholarships from Miss Corey Gray.
Good morning, Superintendent Walters, Director Haken, board members. I have the pleasure to present to you the FY 2025 Lottery Education Trust Fund CareerTech Scholarship Summary Report. For those of you who are new to the board, each year we present to you what CareerTech is giving out to its constituents and local community stakeholders in the ways of scholarships for education, technology center, innovative grants, and K-12 innovative grants. This program is very unique because we pay out the funding as we receive it, so it's paid in arrears. This is money we actually have in the bank and that we are spending. I try to make it as clear as possible so you know exactly what is going out to your community, you know what the schools have requested, and we're really excited to announce. So with that being said, we'll start with the scholarship summary report. It should be in your board packet. You can see that it does cross over fiscal years, so we're looking at what was paid in summer of 2024. We have fall 2024, spring 2025, and an estimate of the scholarships that will be paid in the first part of the summer semester for 2025. So within this fiscal year, we allocated 400 scholarships for a total of $375,512.42. Are there any questions? And each of these are a separate discussion item with a possible action.
So if you're looking through documentation, this might be the most helpful for you on this agenda item. That's just a quick look at the scholarships itself.
And all of
We
these
approve
scholarships
the
were awarded.
FY 25 lottery scholarships.
Yes, I was just going to say, all of the funding is for Oklahoma schools, Oklahoma colleges and tech centers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ashley, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Ms. Hanning?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Superintendent Walters?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Ms. Corey Gray, the next action item is for you as well on the lottery grant awards, K through 12.
Right, so in your packet, you will see a two-page stapled sheet that has a listing of all of the program areas. It starts with ag, and it ends with T&I. And you can see the individual awards, the individual schools from the divisions. This grant amount is for $15,000 to go into the K-12 sites. It is to be used for equipment, innovative equipment that is purchased for next year. So they'll buy the items and have them ready to go in the classroom to be used by students for next school year.
Might remind board members that part of the opportunity to be an approved program by our agency makes you eligible for this lottery program. So even as we have programs that come on board in the K-12 schools and we don't yet have funding legislatively to provide their 412 or 411 supplement, they still are eligible for lottery grants. So it's a great way that we can help schools out to provide equipment.
What kind of equipment? Anything fun?
Well, it actually depends on the division, because what may be considered high technology and innovative in one area, it's not the same in another area. So in STEM, you may purchase robots, high technology equipment, 3D printers. In ag, they're looking at various items. I've seen everything from hydroponic planting systems to new and innovative ways to present welding, because we know a lot of welders come through ag, so they may ask for equipment for that area. In business, they may ask for new software or new computers because technology, changes so quickly. So it really depends on the division. Family and consumer science, you might even ask for a new gas oven, because that would be innovative for their classroom, or new, I've seen some sewing equipment. So there are some things, it depends on the instructor and what their needs are.
I have a few questions. I'm the new guy on the board, so these might have already been covered, but I know what STEM and ag is, but could you give a summary of the other
Sure.
categories?
So within our division, we have, you'll see the next acronym is BMITE. We use a lot of acronyms, as you see. So BMITE is Business Marketing Information Technology Education. FCS is Family and Consumer Sciences. Then you flip over to the next page, we have our STEM, which of course is our science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And T&I is our trade industrial education, your traditional programs when you think back to.
And then what's the criteria? Like I notice, for instance, Jinx might have more than one award in one category. What determines how they get the awards and whether there's more than one?
Right. So a few years ago, I'd say probably actually 7, we made the decision to have schools apply according to their program identification number. And you can apply for a grant and receive a grant every other year, because we want to make sure that we're spreading the funds across the state and it's not the same school and not the same teacher receiving the grant every year. So a school, and it's actually by the instructor, by the instructor's identification number.
Okay.
So we consider a program to be the instructor level. So where I taught in an ag program, my teaching partner was a separate program. Those are 2 programs, even though we do similar things. You would have the same in a lot of these divisions. And you'll notice that there's more in some divisions than others, STEM and ag for sure, FCS, and small in health and small in T&I, because those are primarily in tech centers, not in the K-12 classrooms. So
Okay.
that's why there's a little bit of difference. You'll see the Tech Center awards here in a moment.
Yes.
Would you say there are some schools that let opportunities go by?
I would say this year, we actually saw an increase in requests. We know that school budgets are tight, and so we want to make sure we provide ample opportunities for all schools, all career tech programs, regardless of funding, to apply and receive these grants. We actually do have some training videos out there for instructors to actually write a quality grant, because we know some districts, a larger district may have a grant writer. And if you have a grant writer and then an instructor who's focused on teaching in the classroom, their level and capacity to put into the grant is not the same. So we want to make sure everyone has the same opportunity.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you talk to me about, I mean, some districts in here applied multiple times. I see Edmond received it. I mean, I counted 3, just kind of glancing over this for ag and then FCS and multiple of them. So why is it that some schools would apply for multiple? Is that just an individual decision? Is there any reason why some districts would say, hey, we're going to apply in each of these areas? Could you kind of maybe give me a little bit of context?
Right. The RFP, the request for proposals, goes out to all of our districts. So we send it out to the superintendents, we send it out to the instructional leaders, and we also send it out to all of the instructors. The grant request comes through the individual instructor, and then we also request and require a letter of support from the superintendent in that school district. And if a person does not follow all the steps, of course, they wouldn't qualify. We hope to have a vertical and horizontal push to make sure that you're aware of opportunities. If you apply for the grant, and for example, this year we had over 250 plus applications, we did not have that much money to disperse. So if you apply this year and you didn't get the grant, you can apply again next year. So as the only disqualifier is if you received the grant the previous year. So, and if you have a 2-teacher program, both you and your partner can apply because they are considered different programs, as Director
So
Higgins said.
also to add to that answer, and Corey did a great job there, but like Edmond has 4 ag teachers, so there are 4-teacher programs, so they're going to have more teachers that qualify, and they have many teachers across the district in FCS, and so the larger districts have more teachers in their programs, and they may have multiple grants in a year. Stillwater, where I taught, also had 3 teachers, so we may all apply at the same time.
Would it, or could it also potentially be that, I mean, they have 3 teachers or 4 teachers. The reason they have 2 grant or 3 grant awards is each of those teachers have different assignments. One of them may be in ag mechanics, so they may need some welding. One of them may be in agri-science. And so they each have different responsibilities when they're in that program. Would that be correct? And
Absolutely.
And so that allows different grant applications.
Exactly.
It's very unlikely that teachers would duplicate what they are providing instruction. Most commonly, everything I can think of, they would be totally different curriculum sets within one school. So to give you the example of Edmond, which we're on, one does all the shop, and one does all the greenhouse work. So they're totally split on what they do.
I would move we approve the FY '26 lottery grant applications K through 12. Grant awards, I'm sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Ms. Ashley, you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Ms. Hanning?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert? Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Superintendent Walters?
Yes, motion passes. Ms. Gray, the next one is you as well. This is the lottery grants for the tech centers.
Okay, and in your packet, you will see the Technology Center FY '26 lottery grant sheet. This year, we had the opportunity to look at funding $100,000 non-competitive grants that tech centers may apply for. They still have to apply. They still have to submit the RFP. And then there's an opportunity to apply for competitive grants, which has a $50,000 limit. And like I said, that is a competitive process. Some of our schools will apply for both grants. One thing I did want to mention on both sides for the Technology Center as well as the K-12 sites, the grants are scored by the divisions initially because they are the experts in their areas. So to address Mr. Gilbert's questions, if it's a ag grant, it's looked at by the ag division first, and it's scored by the ag divisions because they know their schools, they know their instructors, and they understand the needs of the field. So the same thing happens with the Technology Center. With the $100,000 grants, they're awarded on an every other year basis. So outside of completing the application, submitting your budget, giving a narrative for the equipment, purpose, and support, that grant is pretty much allocated. I mean, you would really have to just decide not to apply and turn down the money to not receive the non-competitive grant. On the competitive side, this grant, initially, we only had 4 to disperse. We managed to look at some additional funds. Like I said, this money is spent in arrears, so if a tech center didn't spend all of their money, there was an additional pool of money. And the way these lottery funds are dispersed are 45% for technology center grants, 45% for K-12 grants, and then 10% for lottery scholarships. So that's the disbursement of the money. Because we had a little extra money left over, we were able to give additional $50,000 grants. And so we're really excited to put this money back out into the field. And with some of these grants, you'll see we had everything from firefighter training equipment request, health skill sim lab updates. One of the popular items right now is called I'm going to say it wrong, AdModge table, where you can actually look at, looks like a cadaver, and you can dissect it, but it's all VR. It's really exciting, really new. We're putting a lot into aerospace, and so providing opportunities for students as we address with Gordon Cooper. So there are a variety of applications, and we're really excited to share those with you today.
Any questions? WED is WED acronym, Workforce Economic Development. That's our short-term training.
And you can see here on the program division area, you'll see, for example, there are combined areas. So within health, T&I, and WED, they're purchasing a piece of equipment that is health-related, but it can cross over to trade, industrial. But then it also can be used for short-term training. So they can bring in people from the community and do short-term classes with this same equipment.
To give you an example, like if they wanted to run a CNA class short-term, they could run that through WED. And then in T&I, very common, we may have a short-term welding where we're only getting a minimum certification. We're not going to a full-blown G6 structural certification. So you may run through WED to get evening courses or weekend course so you can get somebody trained quickly and get them into a job or a promotion. So we offer a variety of classes that way.
And I did pull up, for example, with Southwest Technology Center here, they asked for 3 different areas, and it is a patient care adult simulator. So it can simulate blood pressure, multi-purpose IV training, heart-lung sounds, update kids, mannequin simulator, and then it also has the learning platform that goes with it, so the students learn medication administration with all the software and hardware. So you can see that can be used to train their LPNs, their CNAs, as well as do additional training for the field as nurses may need additional support or continuing education.
Move for approval of Technology Center lottery recipients.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Ms. Ashley, mind calling roll for me?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Ms. Hanning?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Superintendent Walters?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you for that, Ms. Gray. And next, are you good to, you want to move into item 3, Director?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Item 3, review and possible discussion of proposed Technology Center funding formula.
All right, so we are actually done with action items unless there was new business to come about. So board members that need confirmation, if you needed to leave, we could lose quorum at this point. But we're doing really good on time. So I'm going to walk you through, Braden, if you don't mind pulling that up. We're going to discuss briefly, or in depth if you would like to. It's really your call. You're the board. So we're going to talk about CareerTech Center funding. This has been something that's been a priority for me this year. I've put a lot of superintendents to work to review this, put a lot of our staff to work to see how we can do a better job. To kind of start you off, and some of you have heard this before, This is the operational funding formula that's under review, not WED, not related to flex benefit allowance, and not related to the legislative one-time raises that have come through. So it's only their operational funding that we have typically thought of as full-time funding. So there are other mechanisms that bring dollars into tech centers that we're not talking about today. The WED funding formula is totally separate at this time. Flex benefit allowance is defined by statute, and then there has been 3 different laws that I'm aware of over the last 20 years or so that have brought raises to instructors or support staff that are required statutorily. So what we started reviewing was the old formula that really wasn't in practice or in use, but there was a lot of good pieces of that. The reason it was not in use is because it was built off of an arbitrary number that it should cost for a program, not off of how much money do we really have available and then disperse that equitably. So we reviewed that. Yeah, it's been a problem since 1968, since we started. Then we reviewed that, and I don't know why nobody's really changed it. But anyway, we reviewed statute as well. What must we consider? So I'll walk you through that here in just a moment. The purpose is to make sure that we have equity across the system. Some schools have more ad valorem than others, so that's the real purpose. The criteria that we should be looking at, and then set parameters by the committee. So this is what it breaks down into 4 real categories that we have this funding formula broke out to now for operational funding. Local needs, that's all about how much money do they have locally. That drives the whole thing. Secondary service incentive is how many students do they currently serve of those eligible, juniors and seniors. You guys have heard about the wait list stuff. We all want rid of that. We want students that need to be in the tech center at the tech center. So it incentivizes schools to serve more students. Approved campus funding, we just talked about that with the new campus on aviation at Gordon Cooper. That is by statute something we must include. And then the student services formula is the other components that statute says we must consider as a board. It doesn't set parameters around what we must fund, but we must consider, and I'll show you what those include here in just a moment. So the local formula part, the local needs, that's going to be 70% of this funding formula as it gets built out, as we presented today. We're taking 65% of their local dollars, LD, general fund, not building fund. Building fund's not considered in this. This is general fund. So the local collection times 0.65, that generates the amount of money that should be available to provide programming to students in their district. So I take that LD and we match it with state allocation and divide it by the total number of eligible programs and technology centers, and that comes up with a state average amount per program. That is the number that drives this formula. So each tech center then has their local dollars compared to their number of programs, and then compared to the average. Are they above or below the average? I'm walking through this really fast, so if you need me to stop, feel free to. This would be an example of how that works. So in this tech center here has $9 million in local revenue. Times 0.65, $6 million should be available for local programming, considering that the other percentage, the 35% not included, would be everything from WED to local needs that they provide for facilities. It might be administration that's in that as well, but 65% should be available for programming. This tech center has 31.4 programs. The programs, as we discussed earlier, are the teachers themselves. How many teachers are available? To be an approved program, to be that blue number, that 31.4, they must meet our capacity. So 60% classrooms must be 60% full. So if the state capacity for health is 12, which is a 12-to-1 ratio in healthcare nursing programs. It may be a 20-to-1 in a T&I program. It may be a 25-to-1 in a STEM program. They all vary. As long as they are 60% full, they are eligible for programming. If they don't fill that classroom, they're not eligible for funding. So then you go to the per program local available. This school has $194,000 available per program. Well, that is a difference in the average. The average is $266,000 that you see above that in that box. So they would need per program $72,000 to be at the average. This is how I've built out the equity. Not saying that they're going to get $72,000 per program, but that is what they would need to meet the average. So their total need would be $2 million to come to the average. What they have available in this funding is 70% of a total. So if we had $75 million in state aid, then this formula has 52.5 available. They would be able to get 1.6 in funding, because that's what we have. It has to be prorated off the total amount in all tech centers as we go through. That is kind of confusing. It is 100 times more simple than the old formula. I won't waste your days going through the old formula. Lisa can do that. She's good at it. It is a nightmare. It is page after page after page of spreadsheets. Does that make sense to everyone? Trying to provide equity. That's one portion. Go ahead, Randy.
Whenever you talk about the local funding and the ad valorem funding, there are certain statutory requirements for that funding where it can only be used.
Yes.
And then CareerTech requested a change in that 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
To open that up a little bit, but there are requirements where that money can only be used in certain areas such as.
Absolutely.
What?
Yeah, so
So we don't want to think that's an open number.
That's right. In the building fund itself, which can be up to 5 mills, is not included at all. The other two categories that you have are in your general, it's actually 2 different categories that were combined. That's what Randy's talking about. So the operational funding and the incentive funding were combined to be a total of 10 mills, and they have stipulations around how that can be spent as well. So it gets a little confusing.
That .4 instructor has a hard time doing their job, right, I guess? I don't know.
What that means is, that's a good question. Yeah, they really struggle. So what that means is that you will have, that is categorized as an FTE, full-time employee, on a 10-month contract, but there are certain instructors that are on 11s or 12s. So you may have an instructor that's a 1.1 or a 1.2 if they're on an 11 or 12-month contract. Great question, because we have programs that have to run longer. Cosmetology is a long program that's set by the Cosmo Board, so they are typically on 11 or 12-month contract. Others are as well.
So I only made it through calculus in college, so you have to bear with me. But is the formula impacted as you add centers and programs? Do I understand that correctly?
It is. That way it can
The
float
average
back
is
and
gonna
forth.
go,
Yes.
and theoretically, it'll, I assume it only changes in one direction because we're not reducing programs and centers.
It
right?
could reduce a tech center if they're doing a poor job and not having enough programs, or their programs aren't full,
Okay.
and they would lose funding. So that would be a way that they could lose, so it incentivizes them. That's one of the problems that I've had. Our current formula is stagnant. So I could do a great job or a terrible job. You're giving me the same amount of money. This one would not do that. It would say, do a good job, you'll continue to get as much money or more. So that's the goal of the formula. We've really been at a locked place. So that's what we're hoping. Also, though, the bigger consideration and the more likely thing is ad valorem is going to change. So if you're in a metro area, your ad valorem is growing substantially. So you're going to need less state dollars. If you're in a rural area, your ad valorem could be going down, or it could be stagnant, so you're going to need more state dollars. So that way, that's how I wanted to provide equity to the system, is if I'm at West Watkins or Western or even High Plains, my ad valorem doesn't change very fast. So I need help as inflation goes. If I'm at Francis Tuttle, Tulsa Tech, Canadian Valley even right now, my ad valorem's going up. So I don't need as much state help. Does that make sense?
And this doesn't impact like hard assets or buildings? Okay.
No. There are things they could do with the dollars, but it does not impact their hard assets. We'll get to the campus funding here in just a moment. Yeah.
Okay.
Mike, do you have a question? I saw you hit the button.
No,
Okay.
I forgot to turn it.
All right. We're going to jump into another portion of it. So the secondary service incentive formula, a breakdown is 10% of the total allocation. So again, I'm running this off of $75 million. Currently, just to make you aware, we put $50 million into their state formula. That's what's in now. So of the $163 million that CareerTech agency gets, $50 million goes into this formula currently. My 75 number is a starting point, because what we really need, I think, in the system is about 85 million, but a 75 is what and we'll get into that, what the budget looks like this year here in a moment, but 75 is where I'd hope to get quickly so that we can make the best changes possible. So This, again, is to drive or create an incentive to serve more students. It is built around what our averages are currently. So 67% of that money available would go to those who have a service rate of 29% or higher. Okay? So most of the money would go to those that are serving 29% of their eligible juniors and seniors or higher. We don't have a whole lot of tech centers that do that. It breaks down there in a minute. 33% of the total allotment goes to those who have a rate of 22 to 28% of juniors and seniors served. If you're below 22%, you do not get any of this money. That way we can incentivize serving more students. I am hoping that all schools can soon move to where they're serving at least 22% of their juniors and seniors. Currently, we have 9 schools that are in the second bracket, and we have we had 75 million. Oh, this is if we had 75 million in state aid. Sorry, I got to remember what I wrote. And we have 13 schools. That both says second bracket. That's what's throwing me off. We have 9 in the first and 13 in the second. Apparently, I can't proofread my own work. So 9 schools are in the first bracket and 13 are in the second. Okay. Campus funding is 10% of the allocation as well. So considering that we're having an estimate of $75 million in total allocation, we had 61 approved previously. We had 62 when Coweta came on, if I'm not mistaken, and then we have 63 now as of today. So that will be broken up, that 10% just divided out equally. Campuses are one thing that must be considered by this board by statute for funding of technology centers. Doesn't say how, this is just the new way that we've looked at doing it. So we've taken 10% of the allocation. It does take extra cost to run extra campuses.
Does everyone always receive the same amount? Because different campuses need different things, and some years they won't. So
Correct.
does everybody get that?
Currently, nobody gets it. This is new. So it is part of the old funding formula, but the old funding formula was not really being used. They were locked at a place in time from 15, 20 years ago. I don't know what it was.
So they'd receive funding for the campus whether they needed it or not, or wouldn't receive?
So if they would receive this allocation, whether they had a lot of local dollars or not, that is correct. That's the only problem really with this formula. But what it does help with is if a school like Gordon Cooper is needing to add a campus and it makes sense.
They can save up for a few years.
Yes, and they can use this allocation for some of the extra costs. So if you have a campus, you have to have a campus director, somebody that's there as an administrator on site. You can't just have teachers on their own out there. You have to have somebody that's there. So it helps with that. It's not a lot of money. In this scenario with the 61, it'd be $122,000 per campus.
So this is just a new designation, like the money existed, we're just calling it something else?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So not a lot of dollars, but some help to those campuses. We have Kiyomishi's the one that really should come to your forefront of your mind when you're thinking about campuses, because there's such a large geographic area. Is it 9 approved campuses Kiyomishi has now? Does anybody remember? I'm looking at my staff. 10? It may be 10. They have a ton of campuses because it's too far to transport students from one side of the district to the other. It's all of southeast Oklahoma, really. So they have to have a lot of campuses to cover the schools. And there's a large number of schools in that district as well, K-12 schools. Okay, so if, as we look at this, 10% also comes from our cost per program formula. You guys may not be aware of that. We have a breakdown that we track the expenses of every school. So Lisa's team works on that. Actually, one team member really does the majority of the work, tracking their expenditures and income. And so those are the categories that you see in front of you that are considered. Those are the categories that statute says that we as a board must consider. So classroom activity, guidance and counseling, instructional support, and student transportation. Those are all then put together for a total, and then that is compared to a total expenses, and it creates a percentage of those 4 categories to total expenses. So think of it as, how much money am I spending on the classroom? It's really the way to think of it. Those are the categories we must consider. So that's the way we've broken it out currently, is this would create a percentage. That percentage is then compared to the average, much like the first formula is, If they're above the average, spending more on classroom activities, then we will provide a bonus. If they are at the average, they do get a less of a bonus, but they still get a bonus. If they're below, they receive a reduced or no amount, depending on how low they are. So there's a whole sheet for this. I didn't put the whole sheet together, but I'd be happy to do that for anyone that has questions. The whole goal is to focus resources to the student. So this part of the formula makes sure that we're not wasting dollars in other expense areas, but schools do have to balance that there may be times when they have to use a savings to provide new structure or new equipment. So there are some changes that may be made from year to year, and these are broken up into different tiers depending on the size of school as well. That one's a little bit confusing.
Last number coming from that 11 million. Where is that?
That's their total. For this tech center example, that would be total instruction and activity expenditures. So all expenditures, except building fund, right, Lisa? Yep, except building fund. So does that make sense? So a tech center may have $11 million in expenses that year.
And only 4.9 of them are coming from,
Those categories, those 4 categories. That's correct. Yep. So you'd have a little less than 50%. Yep. In that example, if I remember right, that school is not would not receive dollars. If I remember, that one's. I'm trying to remember. I think that one's below the average, so they wouldn't receive any of this money. So they'd have to be above this. If I remember right, the state average was 61% or something like that. That's right. Yep. That one's a little bit confusing, but it's what we needed to do statutorily to meet our requirement to consider these different categories. Best way we could come up with to do it. Okay, any questions? This is really small, so I can email it out to you, or there are screens right behind you if you need to look at those. This would be a breakdown of how it would all work together. So the 4 different mechanisms all in one place, and then distributing a total allocation. So I gave you an example of, it looks like 5 different tech centers, what their ad valorem is, how many programs they have, ones that would receive money. As you notice that last line there, they have enough local dollars that they are above the average in per program available dollars. So they would not receive any aid in that green category. They would receive their campus allotment, and they may receive money in the other categories if they're serving enough students or if their expenditures are the correct amount above the percentage. So that's the way that we have determined to provide some equity to the system. Make sure you're doing your job and you will receive money. If you're not going to receive money. Of course, we only control about 20% of the state's allocation at this time. About 80 is local dollars. It's a lot to think about. I've been thinking about it for months, so you guys are getting it quick.
I was about to say, Director, if you don't mind, I got a few questions. I do want to start by saying this is tremendous, what you just put forward for us to start digging into. Incredibly complicated stuff. You move anything, it has impacts on everyone. Very well done, well thought out. I just want to say, first of all, just great job of putting this together. I have a few questions just to help kind of our understanding of it, but I think it's tremendous. I love you looking at kind of how do we incentivize the best practices, best behavior, and again, to what the director pointed out, with controlling about 20% of the dollars, it's enough to be able to do that, but at the same time, you want to do it in a way that you feel is fair to everyone. So can I just ask you, when you look at this, who do you anticipate, and I completely understand if the answer is at this point in time we wouldn't know, but who do you anticipate being kind of your biggest winners and losers? I don't mean necessarily specifically this district or this district, but what kind of district would benefit most, and could you kind of maybe walk us
I'm
through
pretty open with it because the tech centers have been made aware of that same question, so I don't mind sharing. Since we've been stuck in the funding formula, we have some districts that have been really hurt over time. Western Technology Center is my biggest example. As I run through this funding formula, you would see that they have been losing ad valorem for years and years and years and not receiving any more state aid. So their state aid is down to less than $500,000 now total to a school that has 3 campuses and is serving in 31 programs. This would help fix that. So they would be a large winner, and primarily rural areas that have been decreasing. But also, here's a weird one to think of. Canadian Valley Tech Center is one of our fastest growing areas of the state. It is with business and economy. It would support them because they're adding a rapid number of programs faster than ad valorem is catching up. So what would happen is over the next 4 or 5 years, my estimate is they would receive a pretty good share of this, but then lose money as the ad valorem caught up. So that's the good part, is as they were built and then the ad valorem came in, the businesses, then they would start to lose the state dollars while their local money came up. It doesn't do a lot to support urban areas. Metro would receive some support, Metro Technology Center, because they've had 22 TIF districts come in since really since the last 15 years. So they've lost a lot of ad valorem. But other than that, your Francis Tuttle, Tulsa Tech, trying to think, EOC, not even a lot. Most of those schools, Middle, would not receive a large portion of this money. Now, everybody's going to get their campus portion. Everybody would get their instructional dollars if they're doing their job there, but they may not receive a large portion of that big chunk, which is that green category there. So your urban settings that have traditionally had high ad valorem, they would receive less dollars than those that have low ad valorem. So West Watkins is not going to be as big a benefactor as you would think from this, because they already receive 80% of their dollars from our funding formula. So they already are a big winner. It's not going to change them dramatically, but those that have been miscalculated by changes, that's where it's going to make an impact. I'm doing my best to make sure and hold schools harmless, but even at 75 million, there are 3 schools that would receive some cuts over time if we did not get more dollars, because they are over the amount, because the amount has not changed in 15 years. As their ad valorem came up, they kept getting the same amount of state dollars, and they should have been brought down slowly, but because that's such a large time span, what I'm hoping to do is hold them flat until we can get some more allocation, or they can catch up with the total number of programs. So they get to choose how many programs they have, and if they can fill those, if they could serve more people, then they get more from the formula. So that's a great question. Winners and losers, I think everybody is a winner in the system, because what it does is, as I don't need money in my school and I'm getting more local dollars, I support another part of the system. So it fluctuates back and forth, so that everybody should provide some winning to this. The schools that would be the losers and the big winners have not adjusted like they should over time.
Thank you, Director.
Be similar to what we do in K-12 with a per pupil. This is per program, because programs have a great expense to put in. You can see that average cost per student is $14,000. We're about $226,000, the average program cost. So to add a program, you have a significant investment. So that's why we use a program model versus a student, but it'd be very similar to a per student ADM.
Can I also ask, what would be next steps with this, if you can kind
Awesome.
of walk through? And I do appreciate you bringing us to this early to start the discussion, but can you kind of walk through what would be the next steps? What would be a timeline on this?
That is a great question. So the reason I showed this to you a little bit early of what I was thinking, the areas and things. Now we have a lot more meat behind it, and I've met with superintendents in our finance committee, and they've put their thoughts behind it, and we've made some changes and adjustments. So wanted to present it as it is almost finalized here, and then in June, hopefully, if we do get an increase in allocation, we would start making adjustments to implement. So in June, you will likely see an action item to bring this formula forward, either in this fashion or a different fashion, depending on how much money comes in. Looks like right now we're going to get an increase of about $9 million to our state allocation. That is enough money that I can start making some of this work. So I think that in June, we will likely have an action item before you. What we may have to do is make a 3-year plan to implement, because I don't want to change a school too much at one time, either positively or negatively, because big influxes or big decreases are not good for anyone, so we need to make sure that we implement correctly. So there will be several items probably in June, and probably a lengthy discussion on the funding formula so that we could implement July 1. other questions, I'd be happy to answer. I know I talked for a long time. Sorry.
Just real quick, does do the local centers have any say on how much ad valorem they contribute?
So, yes and no. Really, the patrons have the say when they're formed or if they bring a new vote to the table. So when you are becoming a tech center or voting to join a tech center, you have a up to 10 mills that you can vote in. 5 is mandatory, has to be to even come in, up to 10 mills in your general operation fund, those two categories I talked earlier. Building fund can be anywhere from 0 to 5. So that is up to the ballot initiative that is brought forward, approved by this board, of course, before it goes out. We recently had changes, though, and those don't have to come to us. A tech center board can decide if they want to vote a millage increase. So Green Country decided they wanted to do that. That's in Rob's area. They actually approved that on the 13th, that they would go from a 2 mil building fund to a 5 mil building fund. That's the max that they can approve. So the community that makes up the tech center gets that say.
Got it.
But if the community doesn't have the money, even if they want it, then they're bound by the fact that they don't have the money.
Right, yeah.
So-
That would be my only recommendation as you finalize this is balancing out the goal of providing some equity,
Yeah.
but also making sure that we're not throwing money at a community that doesn't really care whether they have a
Absolutely.
tech center or not.
Yes.
So that, I'd want to make sure we have a stopgap for that.
Absolutely. That's a good question. This board has to make the approvals on several things, accreditation being one of those things, but also if a community gets to vote or not to have that initially. So you had to, you didn't get to experience this, but Beaver County was a new county to come on, and it had to come to this board first. We've had several that have decided that lately, Thomas Fay Custer community. So usually that's how we know that they want it to happen. They also have the opportunity to vote to come out of a district. So we usually know up front if they have that idea or not, that they want to or don't want to be a part of a tech center. So it comes before this board.
The
Got it.
process sort of keeps them from getting this far
Right,
in most cases.
Yeah,
Like, you gotta want it.
right.
yep. It's a very good question.
Very good, and I hate to say very long overdue, but very, very, very good work. Lisa, thank you and your team,
Yeah,
and
she's put a lot of work into.
Director, for your efforts. So
I just tell people I need it done, right? It's been a lot of work, but I think it's going to be meaningful. It's not an easy discussion to have because it's change, but I think it will be good for the system. I appreciate the support. Nothing to take action on today.
Can I ask you, Director, anything that we can do to be of assistance between now and in June on this front? I mean, I know it's a lot of information. We've got a lot to dig into, but is there anything that could be helpful as we move this forward? Is there any concerns, thoughts for the board to be aware of? And I know it's a big change, and frankly, I know I've heard it, a dozen times. You've been very great on communicating this to the superintendents, to the districts, a lot of conversations, so that no one's going to be surprised by this. You've done this for months, but is there anything, between now and those summer board meetings that would be helpful or for us to be aware of or be thinking about?
So that is a great question. Should have told you. Once we have a finalized budget from the legislature, I'll put scenarios into play with real money now, and then start getting those examples to you digitally, so you can start going through those and then ask me questions, have meetings with me if you'd like to understand it better. But we'll put real money into a formula and give you an example of what it might look like, so you could make that adjustment if you chose to. So that's the best way, I think, is to educate yourself and make sure that you are aware. The legislature, Mike, good luck. So the legislature has been aware of this as well. I've made the education committees aware that we needed to do a better job at the agency to build their confidence in what we're able to do. So hopefully you will be able to share that with them when asked. I know many of you are active legislatively and show them that, hey, we're putting an effort in to build equity to the system. So.
Is there any other discussion on that agenda item before we kind of circle back to our comments? Okay, is that?
That's
we're,
good.
We're going back up to.
Thank you. Now you can give your opening comments.
Yeah, we'll go jump back to the beginning. I didn't have a lot that I wanted to say, but a couple of things. I do want to commend the director for being very active both at the Capitol and in the districts. I think that he's done a tremendous job of, again, this is a big undertaking. And again, I know we've already heard it, but you know, one of the things I want to say is, I mean, it impacts everybody. It'll impact every district. It'll impact every local community. I think Board Member McCulloch made a great point of we don't want to de-incentivize local investment. We always want that local buy-in first. And so that's something that I think when we look at this, we never want to supplant that or step in the way of that. It needs to come from the local districts first, but I think the director's done a tremendous job of giving us something, and I know Board Member Gilbert's talked about this for years, but I mean, just this has been here for so long, and frankly, I think it hasn't been taken on because it is such a big bear. It's such a big lift. There's so many folks involved with it. The easiest thing to do is say, let's just say, you know, kick the can down the road. So I do want to commend the director for taking on a really heavy lift and presenting, I think, a really good plan for us moving forward with that. And again, that was really kind of my only comments here moving in. I know that we're still trying to get more information from the legislature. A budget deal was reached yesterday. The director does a great job of keeping us in the loop of what those things are. I'll tell you, from our end, we don't know the specifics yet. That's kind of being discussed today. But I hope by the end of the week we'll know more specifically what that looks like. But again, all I wanted to say was I wanted to commend the director for that. I think it's a big ask. I think it's a big task, but I think it's one that's very worthwhile for us to dig into. And I do appreciate the time for us to be able to talk about it today and be able to get back to you in the next month or so. So thank you for that, Director.
Thank you. I would add a few comments that we didn't do in the beginning. First off, I had the pleasure this year, I didn't get to last year, of going to Skills USA, and I try to make it to every CTSO event. If you have not been to Skills, you need to go. If you sit on this board, I think you ought to go to that. It is the biggest display of what we do to impact vocational education still. I think that the magnitude of, putting up masonry walls on one end to cosmetology at the other and robotics in between, building a tiny house in an 8-hour day with a team of 5 students. It's pretty incredible. We haven't probably, as the agency, done a good job to get that out to the public to show what actually happens. So I plan to do that better in the future. We're going to invest in telling our story there so that we have a time-lapse video, and then we get legislature there to see what is really going on. It's pretty remarkable what students do, and all of our CTSOs do a really good job, but in what we have done for competitive events in FFA are our foundation, and we often forget of our foundation, so I want to make sure that you have an open invitation to see that event. They will be going to nationals later this summer, but the skills competition is huge. It is impressive. So we need to make sure that we are showing that off more. Just got done with FFA convention. Great convention again. Next year will be the 100th. So we'll be celebrating that. A couple of updates I will tell you. We had a great policy legislative session. We got a bill passed that will allow our pharmacy students to now do clinicals. And that has never happened before. Had to work with the pharmacy board to didn't have to, but we chose to work nice, and we did get it done together to make sure that we have clinical opportunities for students, that they have actual hands-on work, so very excited about that. We have a variety of other small things. Communication bill is up today to make sure we define adult students should not be hindered by K-12 impacts on communication devices, because many times they need that. So we have an amendment there so that if you're going back to the tech center now, we don't need to probably call your mom and dad and let them know what's going on. Probably just need to communicate with you. But you're still a student, so we need to make sure that we define that clearly. So we're working on that. It looks positive for funding. We had asked, as you guys know, because it comes before you, for $40 million, but really the focus was to get the one-time dollars, the $28 million that we got last year in our base moving forward. It looks like we're going to get about a third of that in our base moving forward, so that's net positive for us. Very good movement. Excited about that. Not everything that we want, but it's a small step at a time when the state's really in kind of a flat budget period, so it's good. Very good momentum. Also would mention we tried something new this year with Legacy Capital Fund that other entities use. It's a new mechanism mechanism in the legislature to fund capital projects. Since Beaver County came on last year and western Oklahoma is losing population, we're going to try to build a site there in Woodward that would bring post-secondary opportunities to western Oklahoma. They had a donation of a building this year. Didn't run through this board, is actually driven by business and industry to give $25 million to us, to a board, but it was pushed by business and industry so that we could help build that site out in western Oklahoma. That did not go through, but I would imagine we'll see more of that in the future, where business and industry will be pushing to help CareerTech expand. So that's pretty exciting as well. So that would be my updates. Our team's doing a fantastic job. We're rounding out the year, and we are getting ready for another one. Thank you, Leonard. Good luck. Any questions?
All right, Director, am I missing anything? I know you already mentioned new business.
Do we have any?
Do we have any new business? Anything that you're aware of?
We lost a quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't do new
All right.
business anyway.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So do we,
It'll just make adjourn
Yeah.
at whatever time.
Okay.
Chair wants to call.
I think we're
What do you
good.
want to say, 10:05?
Adjourned at 10:05.
All right.
Thank you all for being here.
We got it done before they had to leave. There you go. That worked.